Hi guys, this is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet to do so. It helps me out and get the word around. And if you get anything from my work at Connect, Design, Epiphany, a Mind Explosion, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of the description, even if Amish mindset alike. Fresh out of the molds. Gems. Little cup holders or paper clips. Gems. He's got two big gems in here. Scullies. Pyramids. All kinds of other fun stuff. Got some paintings. Go check out my website, alisonkatz.com, so that you can check out my portfolio and email me if you're interested in anything. I do everything privately at the moment. Coffee. Woke up this morning. I come downstairs, try to get some things sorted away, trying to do some yard work. That was my whole day yesterday, was yard work. And I have a shower down here that keeps like, I look on the floor, there's a flood. And then I'm very fixity, kind of know what I'm doing sort of thing. Couldn't get anything going because it's an old house. So I had to call a plumber. Now I'm waiting for them to call me to let me know when they're coming this afternoon at some point. Fun times. Yeah. So I need coffee. Today we're going to read the message of Aquaria, the Mystic Oak. Should be very interesting. Quote, "And there came an angel of the Lord and sat under an oak, which was in Aquaria, Judges," end quote. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Quote, "Let them praise his name in the dance, praise him with the tremble and dance," end quote. Psalms. The dance in some form was connected with the religion and worship of every ancient nation, from the dances performed by King David before the Ark of the Lord, down through the serpent circle and sun dances of various tribes, to the maypole dance, which survives today, even though its original significance has been almost obliterated by the mists of time. The dance as a sacred ceremony was performed by those who were set apart and trained for that service and who lived either in the temples or closely connected with them. Quote, "The Hebrew Kadashim or Gali lived by the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings for the grove and were identical as to the duties of their office with the Nash girls of the later Hindu pagodas," end quote. Pause. To this day, there are a lot of ancient native dances that happen here in America. Native Americans do a lot of different dancing, and it's absolutely spectacular to see it in person. I recommend, if you ever get the chance to watch a tribe do their dance, it is breathtaking and it's beautiful. And a lot of other cultures do very similar things. I used to dance, not like that, but I used to be a ballerina. I used to do dance moms kind of competition all around. But when I dance on the ground, the energy exchange is bar none. And it doesn't matter what kind of dance. If you are having fun and you're in your highest expectation of the biggest joy, you're enlightened. You're just dancing to get the rhythm going through your body. It doesn't matter what anybody's perceiving you as. You're doing you. I highly recommend dancing on the ground. Rhythmic motion is the second syllable of the creative world. The first syllable, light, sets in motion all the particles contained in the chaos, whose evolution begins with the words, "Let there be light," and each particle vibrates with certain rhythm, which is the producer of form. Yes! Well, the last syllable is color. Yes! Hence, without light, motion, color, and form, there is no creation in the objective world. I say this all the time. The knowledge of this law formed the basis of all sacred dances, for they considered largely of postures and rhythmic movements of the entire body, involving every muscle, emphasized by the color of the costumes and lights, rather than merely the continuous movement of their feet, as in modern social dances. The basic idea was that since light creates motion, color, and form, conversely, proper rhythm, motion, color, and form would produce light, spiritual illumination, and ecstasy, according to the psychological axiom that going through the motions which express an emotion will tend to induce the emotion again. For example, stand before a mirror and make the facial muscles go through the expressions of some emotion, such as joy or sorrow, and a corresponding state will temporarily be induced. Indeed, it is often helpful when in a depressed mood to stand before a mirror and make the features wrinkle into the expression of laughter, and a more cheerful frame of mind will speedily be induced. Even today, a branch, asana, of the Hindu yoga system seeks illumination and liberation from the spirit through the assuming of certain postures, which, when combined with color, music, and also the breath, in directing the life currents of the body, tend to bring about not real spiritual illumination, but certain psychic states, varying from trance to ecstasy, or, on the other hand, to I don't know that word. Calypsy or frenzy. Sorry, that's one of those old words that the SAT asks you for. We find similar methods still employed today for the same purpose in the sun snake and other dances of the American Indians, also among the whirling dervishes of Arabia and the shakers of America. At an early date, however, sacred dance became corrupted by the misuse of the forces generated and became identified almost exclusively with phallic worship, and hence were eliminated from the more solemn and sacred forms of worship. Consequently, dancing took on an undeserved odom, which did not properly belong to the dance itself, for harmonious rhythmic motion performed both to induce and to express the feelings of joy and ecstasy arising from religious experience should have its place in religious ceremonials. It is well, however, for sensitive persons not to dance with those who are not in harmony with their ideals, for the change in vibration contact in dancing first with one person and then another, when they are not in mental and spiritual harmony with the same ideals, is very disturbing to the vibrations of one's aura and very depleting to the nervous system. Have religious worship retained the graceful and joyous forms of expression in their purity, religion would never have descended to the narrow, cold, austere, and unlovingly forms of expression through which it passed during the days of the Puritans, when all expression of beauty, pleasure, and joy were looked upon as sins and punishment. Pause. To that point, if you've ever watched Latin dancing, ballroom dancing, a lot of it is Latin inspired, you can tell the chemistry between two people, not because they succinctly work together and they're in on the timing and everything is like, boom. you could see the chemistry within their soul when they look at each other, when they hold each other, when they're doing dips and flips and all those little whirlies that you see on the floor. The partner trust, respect, and the chemistry is what's seen through that dancing. Where if you watch, you know, Dancing with the Stars, you could see there is lack of chemistry with certain couples that you see, and they get goodbye really quickly. But then take that the next step further with dance teams and with everything. If you're not in sync with the people that you're dancing with, the vibration of joy and happiness and rhythmic harmony is not there. I used to be on a dance team, and as much as I used to be bullied, I succinct myself with them when we were dancing for an audience. I let my ego go bye-bye because I wanted to win. But to that point, it's all about chemistry and souls. Chief sacred dances were performed in a circle and in honor of the nation's sun, or fire god, and were intended to symbolize both the circling of the planets around the sun and descent of the divine light, or the creative potencies of the Christ force, by whatever name it was called, into the earth, that darkness, winter, death, and the inertia of matter might give place to growth, expression, and evolution. As a result of the quickening power of the spirit, the ceremony from which the modern maypole dance descended was originally performed around a bonfire. It was instituted by the ancient Druids before the British Isles were separated from the mainland. The very meaning of the word Druid, the very knowing, the wise, shows that they were not the ignorant idolaters which uniformed and superficial modern writers have supposed, and their original teachings were far from being the superstitious practices into which they later degenerated. From the oncoming of the English invaders and the Anglo-Saxons, took away the simplicity of the people and degraded their ceremonials by literal interpretations of the symbols, until there came a time when human victims were sacrificed upon their altars. The ancient rite in which the priest cast himself upon the stone of sacrifice symbolized the sacrifice of the lower nature of man in the spiritual human to the divine. Thus, the sacrifice of the personality to the higher self became degraded, just as later the mystic crucifixion of the personality that the Christ might rise gradually became materialized into the literal death and human sacrifice of Jesus. Caesar, returning from his conquest of Gaul, reported that the Druids constituted the learned and priestly class and were the chief expounders of the law. They taught the immorality of the soul, believed in reincarnation, and have for their favorite studies astrology, geometry, geography, physical science, and theology long before written works were known to the common people. In fact, the earlier Druid priests were initiates from the Lodge of Masters, who in the degenerate days of Atlantis taught all the people who would listen to the true religion, and before the final sinking of the continent, led all their followers out of the country into Europe, over the peninsula, which at that time made the Mediterranean an inland sea. Later, they sent out missionaries to the younger and more childlike peoples in Gaul, Ireland, Wales, and elsewhere to establish the one true wisdom religion. Among them were the legendary semi-divine kings from whom many Irishmen believe in their hearts they had descended. History shows the populations of central Gaul revolting against the Roman yoke. Parish Bibricus, I'm not saying that right, the mother of sciences, the soul of the earlier nations in Europe, a town equally famous for its sacred college of Druids, its civilization, its schools, in which 40,000 students were taught philosophy, literature, grammar, jurisprudence, medicine, astrology, occult sciences, architecture, rival of Thebes, of Memphis, of Athens, and of Rome. Such was the last city in Gaul, wherein died from Europe the secrets of the initiations of the great mysteries. Pliny devotes many of a chapter to the wisdom of the leaders of the Celts. The Simothes, the Druids of the Gauls, expounded the physical as well as the spiritual sciences. They taught the secrets of the universe, the harmonious progress of the heavenly bodies, the formation of the earth, and above all, the immortality of the soul. In religious literature, they almost exclusively represented as magicians and diviners, opposing the Christian missionaries. Though we find two of them acting as tutors to the daughters of Ligeri, the high king at the coming of St. Patrick. The word Drew is also used to render the Latin Magnus, and in one passage, St. Columba speaks of Christ as his druid. Drew also means an oak. The great fundamental truths as to the inner relations of God, nature, and man, instead of being indicated by symbols and by printed explanations as today, were in those days illustrated by symbolic customs and ceremonials in which large numbers of people in every village took part, thus impressing the meaning of the symbol more forcefully upon the minds of the people. In the days when the dance was performed around the bonfires, the fire sigil, which symbolized the constant of the deity to another cycle of life and evolution on earth, was not given until the constellation of the Pleiades in the neck of the bull, the sign of Taurus, the thunder god of England, was exactly overhead in the night sky. The Druids then understood the meaning of the sun in Taurus, when all other fires being extinguished on the 1st of November, their sacred and inextinguishable fires alone reminded to illume the horizon. This is evidence that it was the spiritual and not the physical sun that was worshipped, for the Pleiades contained the central star Alcyone, around which our universe circles. But as this requires exact astronomical calculation and varied from year to year, later on, the first day of May was fixed as exoterically approximating correct season. The ceremony was conducted by 7 priests, representing the powers of the 7 sacred planets and the 7 Pleiades, while the dance itself was performed by 12 maidens, symbolizing the circle of the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 12 months of the year around the sun. In the later symbolism, the dance was performed around the sacred oak, and still later, if an oak was not available, the masculine principle of a fire, or the sun, was symbolized by the upright maypole, while the feminine principle was indicated by the circle drawn on the ground, the two having the same significance, forming a creative symbol like that dot within the circle of the ligam and the yoni, all of which later became degraded into objects of phallic worship. The fact that the Druids looked upon the oak as a sacred tree again proves their knowledge of occult lore, for the oak is the highest type among trees, as has reached mastery in that kingdom. And like all types which reach mastery in their respective kingdoms, gold among metals, the diamond among earths, the rose among flowers, the oak sends out a force of perfection, strength, and mastery. Because of this emanation, it was used in the May dance of the Druids. It was also planted in the groves around their centers of worship and their dwelling places. Therefore, just as the Christian ceremonies of Easter bring to our minds the great cosmic fact of the resurrection of the sun from the southern hemisphere, or the renewal or resurrection of the life force, the Christ force, of nature from the tomb of winter, as well as the personal significance of the resurrection of the Christ in each heart, so the bonfires and maypoles, where their attendant dances and ceremonials had the same double significance and symbolized the same grand truths to the early inhabitants of Ireland, Britain, and Gaul. That the masculine principle of the fire had again descended to fructify Mother Nature and Mother Earth, that she might bring forth her increase in the new cycle of manifestation. One of the ceremonies of the ancient May festival was the planting of an oak, by the Druid priests in the center of a plot set aside for the dance. The tree was planted with certain magical rites, which invoked or which, through the enlightened will of the priests, so consecrated the life forces of the elements that the spot became a focus for earth currents to such an extent that the oaks thus consecrated life and flourished for centuries. Even today, many of the trees thus planted survived, were not devastated by the hand of man. Among the Hawaiians of today, tree planting ceremonies closely resembling the ancient Druidic rite is still occasionally performed by the older hunas or priests, by means of which exceptionally long life and great fruitfulness is imparted to the tree. The reason for the results is easily understood by the occultists, for it is well known that the elementals, and nature sprites obey the will of one who knows how to invoke them through the use of the symbols, sounds, and colors to which they must respond. The elementals, the nature forces, are the acting, though invisible, or rather impeccably secondary causes, and in themselves the effects of primary causes behind them, behind the veil of all terrestrial phenomena. The primary cause to the above instances lay in the trained will of the initiated priests. But woe to him who dares to invoke nature's forces for selfish purposes, for they obey blindly the inner, desire of the heart and can disintegrate and destroy as well as create. It is common for the hearts of ancient oaks to turn dark and decay while the tree grows on. This leaves a hollow interior, blackened as though burned with fire. Hence the oak is said to have a heart of fire, and the blackened cavity is cited to prove it. All true symbology and ceremonial is but the outward picture of the divine reality as inner truth, which is of the vital importance to the unfoldment of the soul. The order of the Christian mystics is also likened to a sacred oak and its successor, the maypole, and that it is another effort of the missionaries of the Great Lodge to call down the divine fire of the Christ into the hearts of humanity. Recognize, therefore, its significance and making it a living oak with a true heart of fire, not a blackened and empty hollow. And as we circle around it through the 12 months of the year as the followers of the Sun of Righteousness, let us call down the forces of the planetary deities and the lesser influences of the zodiacal signs, that this mystic oak or spiritual maypole of the order may be the vehicle for the downpouring of the creative Christ force, which shall warm and fructify the germs of spiritual life within the hearts of all mankind, that it may firmly rooted and that it grows its branches, shall spread far and wide and furnish shelter and grateful shade for many weary hearts, and nesting places for the birds of the air, helpful, unselfish thoughts for the betterment of mankind. Let the 12 streamers attached to this mystic maypole remind us of the 12 monthly lessons sent out from the heart of the fire of this spiritual oak. Think of them as streamers, transmitting to us the spiritual forces of the 12 zodiacal signs, and recognize that the power of the planetary deity ruling each month can be transmitted to us in and through each lesson if we will correlate with it. Realize that just as the force of the central sun go out to all the planets and intertwine as the planets weave their courses through the heavenly spaces, so much there can be established on earth a universal center of spiritual light, which shall be the universal oak, from which there shall go forth the 12 expressions of the spiritual sun to illumine the minds and warm the hearts and vivify the lives of all mankind, each a distinct streamer, yet interblending and working in harmony with all. Therefore, let each student who is sincerely striving to follow the spiritual light seek out and take hold of one of these streamers from the universal oak or center of spiritual light, and realize that it is the live wire connecting him with a great dynamic force whose power comes from the spiritual flame of divine love and wisdom. To make this symbology practical, We will find that by concentrating upon the thought that the heart center of this order is in direct touch with the spiritual sun in very truth, all who touches one of its streamers will find the radiance of the sun illuminating their path and its warmth and spiritual life force filling their veins and rippling through their bodies. Then shall all gladly join hands and joyously dance, so interwinning their forces that the world will see the change in their lives, will recognize that they have united themselves with something that is vital and life-giving. In other words, they have found the angel messenger of the Lord sitting beneath the mystic oak, and that he has placed his mark upon their foreheads, the mark being the shining forth of this Christ light. Among the May Day festivities, there were feats of strength and endurance. The pole was greased, and he who was strong and preserving all and able to climb to the top became the village hero of the year. So it is today with the maypole planted in humanity. Let him who can climb to the very top, the center whence all the streamers radiate, lift up his hands unto the heavens and invoke the glory of the spiritual sun to shed its benzion on all who are not far enough evolved or strong enough to climb the slippery path to the top. As an order, its students have all been climbing, but there have been many slips. Many have started up the pole of the path and have found it difficult to maintain their hold. But thanks to the great law, they have held on, for they have said, in the might and strength and power of the Christ, I will reach the top. There are others who are climbing fitfully, going up a little way today and slipping back tomorrow, picking themselves up and essaying it again. Of such materials are heroes made. By the power of the divine manifesting through the human, we can all become heroes of the mystic maypole. Once we have found this sacred oak, once we have grasped its streamers, once we have joined the circle of the consecrated dancers, once we have called upon the powers of the heaven to aid us, then we can stand around the oak with clasped hands and blending hearts, ask the fire of the Christ, the divine flame, and the Son of Righteousness shall descend like tongues of flame in a fiery baptism upon the oak, and fill its heart with divine fire. And verily, according to the creative forces we bring to it, according to the support we accord it, shall the miracle be accomplished. But to grow and put forth, it must have its human as well as angelic support in earth conditions. It is said that many miracles were performed under the sacred oaks. It was taught that at noon and at midnight, the consecrated oaks sent forth mysterious powers, especially during the full moon, and that everyone on whom their shadows fell was healed, comforted, or relieved of his distress. Also, the devotee who prayed beneath the oak had his spiritual sight opened and saw beautiful visions of the life eternal. The days of miracles and magic are not over. In fact, there is no magic, only manifestations of nature's laws, that which the initiated Druids, through a knowledge of the inner workings of the great law, would accomplish in the ancient days, that which the childlike Hawaiians, by believing in and following implicitly their divine instructors, can accomplish today with the physical tree destined for food, that shall also do, but in the spiritual realm. Every day at noon, a healing service is held by the priests under the mystic oak of the order, during which many miracles have been performed, many sick healed, much bitter sorrow comforted, and much distress relieved, in every land where the shadow of this mystic oak has fallen, for it is an oak planted by the river of life, under whose grateful shade all who may rest. Yet in our lighter moments, it can also stand just as surely as our maypole and inspire us with joy and gladness, thus making life colorful and happy. For May is the month dedicated to the Divine Mother, who ever provides cheer and gladness for her children, just as she provides the many-hued flowers which grow around the oak. Those who have found this order to be the maypole of their choice and have danced and prayed and poured out their offerings around it, who have believed and trusted and loved, how much more shall their fulfillment be from their spiritual planting? How much more shall their spiritual eyes be opened? For like the physical oak, this mystic oak under whose branches we are praying shall endure throughout the ages and bring forth 12 manners of fruit, yielding its fruit each month. Let us then lift up our hearts in dancing and thanksgiving, and join our voices in praise, for the days of miracles are not past. For we see before us the fruits of a tiny acorn planted in darkness and discouragement, watered with tears and tender as a tiny sapling through the years of hardship and suffering. Yet today, amidst all the adverse conditions, it is putting forth firm, strong roots, upward reaching limbs, and outspread branches, which reach into every country and nation and people. Is there one among us who is fearful or faint-hearted? Is there one who thinks that the arm of the Lord is shortened, that he is not able to save his own? Behold before us this miracle. Is there one among us who cries out, life is too difficult? There is nothing but toil and poverty and misery. I am crushed. Let him behold the miracle of the mystic oak. For out of poverty, out of ignorance, out of darkness and obscurity, has this young oak come forth, forcing its way through the crevasses of the land and hard rocks of earth conditions, far up the mountainous side. And in spite of all opposition, it is growing sturdily, because it draws its light from the spiritual sun, and roots are planted and nourished in the bosom of the Divine Mother. In the sacred groves of the Druids, each tree was said to have its dryad or spirit, which transmitted the mystic power of the oak to the priests. This dryad was an etherical elemental, half nature sprite and half a thought form created by the worship of the devotees, yet able to interpret to the priests the counsels of the gods. This belief is not the mere superstition into which it has degenerated, for most old legends, which today read like pure fairy tales, are expressions of an underlying divine truth. Today, that which was foreshadowed in the ancient ceremonies is fulfilled in our mind and our midst. For this mystic oak of the order also has its dryad. Today, it is not a mere elemental, sprite, or thought form, but a living soul, a living embodiment through which the masters of wisdom and the powers of the zodiac can transmit to us their words of encouragement, guidance, and wisdom. Let each of us begin then today to invoke the forces of the spiritual sun, not only in our own lives, but in the heart of the mystic oak, that its priests may have the power to perform their magical rites, that the dryad may be freed from all the hampering conditions and be able to bring us more perfectly the wisdom of the ages. Let us gather close then around our mystic oak and protect it by our love, devotion, and support for all untoward conditions and forces, that its life and fruitfulness may be prolonged throughout the ages. Let each one ask his own heart, each one of us, why he has joined himself to the band of devotees gathered around the mystic oak. Has he come merely as critical spectator? Has he come merely for a passing May dance, merely to be entertained? Or has he come that he might grasp fast hold of one of its streamers of force and become an active worker in spreading the dance of joy and peace and love of the resurrection day in the hearts of those who surround him? Because he recognizes that in his life, the resurrection from the old habits, thoughts, and ideals have really taken place, and he wishes to join hands with those who understand and worship round the mystic oak, that the coming cycle of his life may be filled to greater measure with the perfume of new blossom unfolded kind words spoken, loving deeds performed, and with the satisfaction that comes from bringing forth its life, the mystic fruits of the Spirit. If it is this mystic bond of love and unity which holds us close and fills us, can we not understand that we send the return current of our forces into the center, into the mystic oak, that we are helping the whole world to share our joy and ultimately join us in the sacred dance? Let the world see it live, growing hearts, willing sacrifices, and unselfish lives, and it will soon seek the source of our power. Some of us have tried to give it up. Some have said, it is too much to ask. I cannot give up the old thoughts, the old point of view, the old life. It is too advanced. I cannot go so far as actually to live it. And yet the streamer of living force from this mighty oak, which has entered and twined itself around their hearts, draws them back to the order once more. Believe, therefore, that if the divine powers brought the earth through the mystic oak can help us to lift up the light of the Christ in our lives, the promise shall be fulfilled. And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. There is but one question for us to ask. Answer that truthfully, and we will know where we stand, what our next step must be. We must ask ourselves, am I a sincere follower of the Christ? Am I letting the mystic light abide in me? If not, then pray for a greater realization of the fullness of the love and power of the mystic Christ. For this power is life and love and immortality, and it must work out in us when invoked, as it has worked out in the universe since the invocation, let there be light, was pronounced. If we have identified ourselves with the special aspect of the creative power of the spiritual sun, each effort we make, each step we take is creative and is not taken for ourselves alone. Each thought and act is creative for the good of all. Our very life becomes creative, and such things that become us will be filled with the Christ force and will go forth into humanity with a germ of redemption in it. Not only can we invoke these divine powers to focus and manifest in our own lives, but we can invoke them to focus and manifest through the mystic oak of the order, that all mankind may benefit. Just as the Druids focused in their saplings in the life force of the sun and earth, so can we call down the spiritual life forces that the mystic oak may have the power and substance on all planes necessary to accomplish its great mission. We can call down the power of the sun, and it shall obey us. We can invoke the spiritual forces of the universe to become our servants, but not merely to enrich our personal life, not to give power and aggrandizement to the personal self, but for the help of all. For to be a true magician or druid, we must unselfishly use our rod of power to perform miracles for the good of all. Why a lot of my spiritual soul advices, I tell people to go to a tree and to either hug it or put your hands on it and let it transmute all your negative energy, because that's what trees do. They're transmuters. They're great alchemists. A lot of people can consciously make a connection to, and you can get messages from trees. Why I chose the property I live on is because I have 2 huge trees in my backyard. Huge, and I have one on the side of my house, amongst all my other neighbors' trees, but I have 3 of my own. 2 in my backyard are where the portal Stargate will be eventually. They're beautiful. And when you have a connection to your trees, no matter if it's an oak or not, you're tapping into the natural world, the natural laws, and natural spirits. This was a very powerful and impactful chapter, not only because we look at the month of May as being evil. It's been inversed. a lot of ceremonies, a lot of things that people have done in the ancient times have been inverse and made to be evil. We need to reclaim what these holidays, what these ceremonies were meant to be. If you start negating everything because someone told you it was negative, well, then look back into the Second World War, and a symbol that has been used for peace was turned and inversed. And now no one can use it, and it's been ruined. We need to reclaim these things back. Not everything is evil. It's the will and intention that you put into something that makes it either positive or negative. Collectively, we've all been taught that the druids are evil and they do all these things and they're evil, negative people. But yet, were you there? Do you know? Or is that what you're reading in the books? Because they told you they were evil. They told you they did certain things. There might be some evidence of evil doings. And of course, there's evil in everything. We live in polarity. So there's good and evil. But take the positive message from the maypole and the mystic oak and apply it into your everyday life. I think it's very important that we stop feeding a negative agenda and narrative that's been fed to us since we're all born. Stop feeding into that nonsense and feed the positivity in it, and F what everybody else says. Just like the other chapters in all their books, talking about the symbology and the allegory and what signs actually meant to the ancient peoples, I absolutely trust what they're saying because it shows up in so many other books. But there's still the overtone that this is evil and that's evil and this is this and that is that and bleh. If you make it so, it will become so. That's how creative and how powerful you are. Let's get back to this thinking. Let's get back to the magic of what nature actually is, understanding the multiple layers of amazement that nature can give us, and understand where it came from and derived from. These people had advancements and advanced knowledge that we don't have, that we've been cured to be dumbed down. When we understand that we've been dumbed down and that everything has been inversed, well, instead of looking at the negatives, let's try to find the positives in all things so that we take what's beneficial and move it forward and amplify it and bring it into the new earth, into the new consciousness, into the unity that's going to help everybody instead of the downfall of humanity. Oh, because they did some horrible thing. They use black magic on this stuff. We got to get away from that. We got to stop judging other people who practice paganism, because there are plenty of people in England and in Ireland who do the maypole, and everybody looks, oh, they're witches, oh, they're this, they're that. Why are you judging other people? They're trying to better the earth, and you're here trying to stop that energy from flowing with your negative thinking. Yeah, there is black magic, and it needs to be stopped. Or it needs to continue so that more people wake up. But I choose to see the positives in things as in a realistic, logical sense, rational size sense, not in this woo-woo, mystical, sparkle fart. No, I rationalize my thinking. I come into my other brain. I try to use both sides of my brain. What they said makes sense. What you will to power, what you think, your thoughts become. So if everything in your thought basis is negative, well, because everybody's out to get you and you're shaming and blaming everybody that's out to get you, why is everybody out to get you? These are deeper why questions you need to ask yourself. You need to understand the basis of your readings. Do you know how many people still call me demon worshiper and evil because the Bible tells them that that's what I am, when that's very far from that case? Stop allowing books to dictate to you the negativity that is springing out into humanity. When we can all join hands in unity and find the Christ that you are within yourself and shine your light brightly, the world will be a way better place than it is now. And we're slowly getting there, and I can see it. And it's wonderful. So guys, I hope you got a lot out of that one. The next time we do a chapter, it's going to be the diamond heart. I just did a TikTok on that, sort of. So guys, sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please be safe, be seen. Be the shoulder for somebody to lean on. Be the lighthouse for somebody to find. Be the seed that just drops gently the seeds of your truth. And let's grow together as unity. My plumber should be on their way within a half hour. I'm so excited. So perfect timing on this. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Please be safe, be seen. And until the next time, guys, bye for now.